Murder is like potato chips. You can't stop with just one. No, that quote isn't from a serial killer. It's from Stephen King. But the real monsters? They had plenty of their own chilling words, and they weren't fiction. Some spoke with arrogance, some with delusion, some with a calm that was far more terrifying than any scream. These aren't dramatized lines from horror films. These are real quotes, spoken by real killers. And once you hear them, you might understand that the scariest thing isn't what they did, it's what they said. Welcome back to Prison Stories. This video is about some of the most chilling quotes ever spoken by serial killers. Words that still echo long after crimes were committed. Let's begin with one of the most infamous names in history, John Wayne Gacy. A clown can get away with murder. And Gacy did get away for a long time. A man who literally dressed as a clown while hiding 33 murdered boys and young men behind the walls and crawl space of the suburban home. Gacy was a respected member of his community. He ran a business, threw neighborhood parties, took photos with children while dressed as Pogo the Clown. But underneath it all was a monster who kept trophies and secrets buried under his feet. Another of his quotes is just as chilling, not because of what he admitted, but because of what he dismissed. I should never have been convicted of anything more serious than running a cemetery without a license. That tells you everything about Gacy's mind. There wasn't an ounce of remorse. In fact, he was belittling the entire case, mocking the deaths of dozens of young men by comparing them to an unlicensed burial plot. And on the day of his execution, when asked for his final words, he didn't flinch. Kiss my ass. Gacy didn't just wear makeup. He wore a mask of normalcy, one that fooled almost everyone for far too long.
Big deal. That's always went with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland.
That's what Richard Ramirez said while going out of his trial, sentenced to 19 death penalties. Calm, smiling, like it was all a joke. Known as a Night Stalker, Ramirez terrorized California in the mid-1980s. He broke into homes at night, raped and murdered with no pattern. His victims ranged from elderly women to children. But it wasn't just his crimes that shocked the world. It was how openly he embraced evil.
I am beyond good and evil. Legions of the night breed. Repeat not the errors of Nightcrawler and show no mercy. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all.
I am beyond good and evil. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. That's another chilling one from Ramirez. It was a glimpse into a man who felt no guilt, no shame, and no fear of what he'd done. Richard Ramirez didn't want forgiveness. He wanted to be remembered as a nightmare. I said, I'd like to see her head off. And the teacher got all upset. And I said, well, you asked. That was Ed Kemper, casually recalling a moment from his school years. Long before he started killing, the signs were there. And somehow, people laughed it off. Kemper murdered 10 people, including his grandparents, 6 college girls, his own mother, and her friend. But what makes him especially disturbing is how calm, intelligent, and polite he sounded in interviews. He wasn't theatrical. He wasn't angry. He explained brutal murders like someone giving a lecture. In one of his most infamous quotes, he said, "When I see a pretty girl walking down the street, I think 2 things. One part of me wants to talk to her, be real nice and sweet, and the other part wonders what her head would look like on a stick." He wasn't exaggerating. He meant it. Kemper knew right from wrong. He was smart enough to talk his way out of psychiatric institutions, and self-aware enough to describe his own darkness in detail. But he didn't stop himself. He just hid in plain sight and kept going. I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this. This famous quote by Thomas Grasso became one of the most bizarre final statements in criminal history. And it becomes all the more chilling when you realize it was actually his last line spoken moments before his execution. Not exactly a serial killer. But Thomas Grasso still left behind one of the most famous and unsettling last words ever spoken on death row. Grasso had strangled an 87-year-old woman with Christmas lights during a robbery and later murdered another elderly man. But in his final moments, he wasn't thinking about his victims or justice or forgiveness. He was thinking about his last meal and the fact that he asked for spaghetti but was served spaghetti, and he wanted the press to know that. That one petty complaint says everything. No remorse, no reflection, just a killer focused on canned pasta. Murder is not about lust, and it's not about violence. It's about possession. That one sentence speaks volumes about Ted Bundy's mind. To him, killing wasn't about rage. It wasn't even about desire. It was about owning someone completely. Bundy murdered at least 30 women, possibly more. He revisited crime scenes, posed as victims' bodies, and even returned to them days later, because in his mind, death wasn't the end. It was the final stage of control. And in one of his most disturbing confessions, he said, "You feel the last bit of breath leaving their body. You're looking into their eyes. A person in that situation is God." He didn't say that with pride or guilt, just cold certainty. Bundy wasn't looking for a fight. He was looking for complete dominance, where his victims couldn't say no, couldn't resist, and couldn't leave. That was his idea of power. Look down at me and you see a fool. Look up at me and you see a god. Look straight at me and you see yourself. That was Charles Manson, cult leader, manipulator, and the man who convinced others to kill in his name. He didn't swing the knife himself, but he didn't have to. His power wasn't in violence. It was in persuasion. Manson's words tell a lot about his charisma. He had a way of speaking that pulled people in, twisted, cryptic, hypnotic, and that's what made him so dangerous. His words were powerful enough to make people leave their homes, to abandon everything, and kill for him. And when it came to remorse, there was none, only scale.
Maybe I should have killed 400 or 500 people, then I would have felt better. Then when I felt like I really offered society something.
For Manson, murder wasn't a tragedy. It was a twisted form of expression. And if the world didn't understand his message, he was willing to send it louder. To me, this world is nothing but evil, and my own evil just happened to come out because of the circumstances of what I was doing. In that one sentence, Aileen Wuornos explained her view of the world and herself. She didn't beg for sympathy. She didn't deny her crimes. What she offered instead was a mirror, a reflection of a world she believed had brutalized her, until the brutality became her own. Aileen's life had been shaped by abandonment, violence, and exploitation. And when she killed, she said it was survival, not murder. But over time, that story twisted. And near the end, she no longer sounded like someone trying to defend herself. She sounded like someone who had stopped believing in anything at all. Her evil, she claimed, didn't come from nowhere. It was born from the world around her. These chilling quotes are all that remain, fragments left behind, while many of their voices have long gone silent. And yet, they remain alive, not because of who said them, but because of the coldness and carelessness with which they were spoken. For most of these killers, remorse was never an option, whether they were truly incapable of feeling it, or simply chose to become something hard, hollow, and beyond repair. No one can say for certain. Thank you for watching Prison Stories. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.